Good afternoon for all people, for you, the panel participants, and for all people who is listening to us. I hope you all are enjoying this interesting event, and I am delighted to welcome now 3, and welcome another one, 4 great professionals to a panel discussing about the future, transformation, the scope, and the place of enterprise architecture. Please be warmly welcome, Marek Poklekowski. Maybe you can introduce yourself in one sentence. It would be great.
Yeah, I'm the Chief Enterprise Architect for GE Healthcare, focused on transforming how we do enterprise architecture, transforming the business, and driving a focus on customer outcomes.
Great, and you are based in UK at the moment?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rasmus, please introduce yourself in one sentence.
Yeah, Rasmus Valther Jensen, Enterprise Architect at the Egedal Municipality in Northern Zealand in Denmark. I do pretty much all architecture in the city, since I'm the only enterprise architect. So I'm a broad skilled guy.
Okay, thank you. And I think I make a mistake, Marek, you are in Denmark too, like Rasmus, right?
No, I'm in the UK.
Ah, you are in UK, right? So like Craig is the one being in Denmark.
Yes.
Again to Denmark. Craig, introduce yourself.
Yes, Craig Hughes. I'm an enterprise architect, chief enterprise architect at Danske Bank, also in Denmark, in Copenhagen, as we're currently located. We're on a journey of decoupling our core systems, trying to move on to digital cloud, a private cloud at the moment. So I'm pretty much driving that one at the moment. Okay,
great. So let's begin with my first question, Marek, for you. COVID-19, it's not just accelerating digital progress, it's also driving a radical change in thinking, right? As organizations reset, actually. The most significant COVID business takeaway for me has been the willingness of organizations and their employees to challenge their status quo. Yeah. How do you see the future of enterprise architecture, especially in the new normal? As future at the moment looks uncertain.
That's a great question. I think I'm bound to say this, but I do think enterprise architecture is more important than ever, but it's a different focus for enterprise architecture. What COVID has shown is that agility is fundamental, managing risk is fundamental, being able to adapt to a changing context. These are all things that can be driven, should be driven from an enterprise architectural mindset, but it's not the 5-year roadmaps and stuff. It's understanding how to spin up and spin down new capabilities, architecting for change, architecting for a context that's constantly evolving, that can be dramatic, architecting for new markets. You know, the vast move to remote working is architecting for new channels and a new way of interacting with your customer base. So I think it's still vitally important to do these things at with an enterprise mindset and what I call a horizontal mindset. We are, certainly in my world, I see great architecture in the silos, whether you're talking about supply chain, whether you're talking about logistics, whether you're talking about product design, whether you're talking about commercial marketing, but looking across the life cycle, across the customer journey, across the product journey, and designing in agility and all those things that are good at a micro level, at the macro level, and then still fundamentally translating business strategy to digital outcomes for the customers and for the business. And I think that's even more important in the new normal, or the set of new normals that we're likely to encounter over the next few years. And really understanding what is your core, the architectural view, understanding what is your core and the stuff you can pretty much rely on, and then understanding how to make the pieces around the outside much more agile and flexible. But also, I think there's a different mindset. It's not about giving out mandates from the center. It's about creating an atmosphere where you have multiple teams driving in different, not necessarily aligned directions, but learning how to collaborate and get the best common core out of that to make the business as simple as possible while maintaining its agility and adaptability to the market. So to answer your question, I think it's even more important, as long as it's an architectural approach that's designed on dealing with managing change and responding to a changing environment. I think perhaps the more traditional view of enterprise architecture is not relevant in the new normal. I think it's an enterprise architecture focused on agility and collaboration and managing diversity or different efforts to drive to adapt to market conditions. So.
Very spontaneous. I have a question for all of you. When designing architectures, we are trying to be sustainable for the future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about resilience? Should we include this aspect? It will not only sustainable but resilient is the same thing. What we think very spontaneously.
Who starts? I can try.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear the last part of your what you said, but if we should design for resilience, I think when I suppose the good answer would always be yes, of course, but I'd say it depends a lot on what you're designing. I mean, when it comes to designs, you can always overanalyze and you can design your way, you can design everything, but it's difficult to grasp what is the what are the key elements, what is the most important aspects of a design. If the most important aspect of a specific design is resilience, of course. I think though it depends a lot on the topic that we're designing.
Okay.
I think it's also cultural. I agree, Rasmus. It really is horses for courses. It depends whether you're trying to innovate and position yourself in the market quickly. But also, if you have a culture of, design for security, design for resiliency from the ground up, that you can back off a little bit of that from the speed, but it has to be the foundation of what you build as well, I think. So.
Yeah. Okay. A next question is for Rasmus, for you. Maybe traditionally, security is not a discipline or layer included in most known enterprise architecture frameworks. Mostly cybersecurity is allocated separately under the CSO with own architects. For enterprises they are becoming digital, cybersecurity should be assured along the whole IT landscape. It's becoming more important for digital companies. Do you think that enterprise architecture frameworks should change and include this architecture layer, cybersecurity? Could you imagine security under the Chief Enterprise Architect Officer unit?
Yeah, so if the frameworks that we have today should include security, and if we can imagine security being under the architectural office, right? Well, to the first part, I'd say yes. I don't think I can imagine security being a distinct layer of specific frameworks. For instance, if we take TOGAF as an example, I mean, we do have the layer of business and application and technology architecture. I don't see security becoming a layer within those, between those. I do, however, see security becoming an integral part of the three different architectures. So if we design some kind of specific business architecture, the security needs to be a complete integral part of this structure, right? So that will be yeah, my point. I mean, one of the biggest vulnerabilities is the human aspect. So of course those things has to be taken account of in the design, in specific designs. So yes, to your first question, I suppose. Also, when you do your building blocks, if you do building blocks, standardized building blocks in the different layers, then make sure you have some kind of security aspect integral in these building blocks. If you would design like NIST, the security framework from the NIST organization, then I mean, include them as well in the different frameworks that you have. It could be ITSM frameworks, for instance, ITIL frameworks, whichever one you can find. But make it an integral part of not necessarily architecture, but the rest of the ecosystem of frameworks. Right? The other question is a bit more I wouldn't say tricky, but should you include the security architecture under the chief architect office? Well, the caveat in that one is segregation of duties. I don't know if you can imagine that you have an architect designing a system, designing a solution, or something else, and the design also has to be proven and assessed by the same architect. Well, that becomes kind of a weird thing when it comes to responsibility. Who is responsible then for the mistakes that is made? Should these design and the assessment even be made by people under the same manager? Well, I'd say it depends a lot. I mean, the good thing is that the person who designs these solutions would also get a better understanding of the subject matter, because they dig deep into the business and to the architecture of the area, and they probably also know why they would diverge a little bit from any chosen standards. But also mistakes might be caught too late, or they're easy to hide because they add some kind of personal responsibility to the person making these decisions. So, I mean, I have worked with security guidelines, security staff that can give you guidelines, but they can actually tell you how to implement these guidelines. So I'd say in these, it makes it quite difficult to maneuver in. I would probably say that if you have an organization that's very focused on security, like military intelligence or like crucial infrastructure, probably do the security as part of the enterprise architecture, do the security architect as part of the enterprise architecture, but do the assessment of the specific security in a separate unit. But that way you get the unity of the enterprise architecture and the security architecture, but you also get the safety of a second party to assess the design, assess all the architecture here. That would be my take on it.
Okay. Any comments? If not, sorry, issue. Do you hear an issue? I'm trying to put my headset. There is in between. There is a question from Søren Larsen in our audience. So, do you think that the current frameworks for all of you? Do you think that the current frameworks and methodologies support the way we actually work, or one needs to work? What do you think about the frameworks we have?
Well, the frameworks are like if you taught anatomy on the medicine study, it also gives you an idea of how the different parts, what the different parts are, how they hang together, but they don't teach you how to work within the area. So I think it gives you a basic understanding of the work, of the interconnectedness, but it doesn't give you the capability of actually doing it.
Yeah, there is another question from Nelson Silverio. Security is one of many key qualities to take care of when we design solutions. I think the enterprise architectural framework should be aware of that, but most important of it is to bring on board the security team of the company to check those aspects in the design. Maybe key collaboration, the key is collaboration. Do you agree?
I strongly agree in that. I think increasingly design and architecture and the security aspects and the resiliency aspects and the risk aspects, it's a team sport more and more. There is more architectural capability in the distributed teams. Certainly, I work with than in the central team. So it's very much about bringing in the CISO, bringing in the subject matter experts in the various domains, and working out how to work collaboratively, understand the common enterprise architecture elements that should be the standards, and I can understand where we can have flexibility and agility beyond that. So collaboration is absolutely front and center of the future of enterprise architecture. In fact, that's almost the job at the moment, is making sure the right folks talk to each other. So, you know, I'm very much, you know, in agreement with that statement.
Yeah, I will maybe even extend. I wish always proactive agile collaboration. So when you are working, that you think even what the other may need from you, in order that you are stay forward to deliver maybe what the others will need, and the collaboration is integrated. Don't you think?
Also, besides the inter-team collaboration, just to further with Marek's point, also the collaboration to the rest of the organization, make them understand why it is that we're doing these, for instance, security measures. I've seen often that the business and the security team they don't really understand each other. So having the ability to talk something else than architecture, being able to make it comprehensible for non-IT professionals is, I think, is a big part of the collaboration that's sometimes forgotten.
Thank you. Jordy, welcome. Yes. We are happy to shift to arrive. Maybe you can introduce yourself with a sentence.
Yes. So welcome everybody. My name is Jordy Dekker. I'm a Chief Technology Officer at Value Blue, and I'm a leading enterprise architect at several financial institutions in the Netherlands. In the past, Chief Enterprise Architect in the past at several financial institutions as well. Okay. So, and I'm doing enterprise architecture for about 20 years.
Okay, great. So we have another expert. Thank you.
Hopefully.
One question for you. According to Gartner's Vice President Analyst Marcus Loos, by 2021, 40% of organizations will use enterprise architecture and architects to help ideate new business innovations made possible by emerging technologies. As Chief Innovation Officer, do you think that we need a paradigm shift in the way we operate and manage enterprise architecture to successfully meet these expectations on new business innovation and emerging technologies?
Yeah, well, you can call it a paradigm shift, but it requires a huge shift in the way you look at enterprise architecture, of course. When you look at it in the past 5 to 10 years, the entire world has changed very rapidly. And you see that consumerization comes in more and more. That comes because of the cloud, of course, and the consumer power and the digital transformation that comes in. So businesses will have to take a look outside in instead of inside out more and more. And it's all about digitizing your ecosystem. So you can even call businesses digital businesses. So more and more businesses will become digital. And enterprise architecture doesn't really support the business anymore. It drives the business, as I see it. So as an enterprise architect, you're not in the area that you support and guide an organization towards a new solution for the coming 5 years. You need to be more a digital enterprise architect, I think. You need to be aware of the change that come into play in the world, and that you have to help organizations to move the way forward. So this is, from my perspective and the knowledge that I have about enterprise architecture back in the day, 20 years ago up until now, it changed a lot. So it's about change, and how do you change as an organization? I think this is the era of enterprise architecture, if you do it right even. So we have to pick up the glove, guide the organization to become digital, because they are looking forward to create new business models, but they don't know how. And if you're a tech-savvy enterprise architect, then you are on the right seat, and then you are able to help the organization to move forward. But it requires you to be specific about where the organization should be, the business goals, but also know how to transform your architecture and help projects and your project architectures the way forward. Not about bringing in project start architectures or something like that, but being actually in the driving seat to guide the change. And that also requires a big difference in how you store and work in the area of enterprise architecture, and how you collaborate, and what do you design, and what do you document. Because documentation still is relevant, but you need to do it differently than we did it in the past. So I think that you have to remodel your role together with the entire capability. And I believe that with progressive enterprise architecture on change, you do have a winning concept. And as I said, this is your moment. So you need to be agile and to be adapted to the digital transformation. Know that you have to guide your organization to a global cloud ecosystem. And how do you do that? You are now in the right position to do so. Not anymore to just check the boxes from the projects, but you are now in the right seat to guide the organization. So yeah, I do think that we are on a paradigm shift on, and it's going also already for a few years now. But it's still not too late. But I think you will be too late when you do it in just 2 to 3 years. You have to do it now or next year. But you work your way towards this, and I think it's the way forward. So it's about progressive enterprise architecture as I see it, and that's the paradigm shift that I see.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Do you have any comments on the?
I have to 100% agree with Jordy. I was at a very disturbing roundtable meeting a couple of months ago where the entire audience said to me that enterprise architecture is dead. We don't need it anymore. We have platforms, we have ecosystems. Why do we need an enterprise architect? And I think if we don't evolve and become more tech savvy and understand the business and drive innovation, drive strategy, pen pushes documents, we have to be the innovative members of the organization. If we're not, if we don't adapt, I think we will die out very quickly as a profile, if anything. So spot on, Jordy.
Absolutely agree. Driving innovation, driving digital opportunities, taking the hold of where your business needs to go is key to being successful going forward as an enterprise architecture function.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for these very, very interesting answers. Craig, how close should be enterprise architecture to the corporate deciders? It should be directly under the CIO, under the CDO, Chief Digital Officer, under the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, or more even reporting directly or having a seat at the board of managers?
Interesting question. I did table it with a few of my colleagues and wanted to get a broad view of where this is actually going. And I think, as with any role, the further you move away from any real position of authority, whether it's hierarchy or otherwise, the greater your risk that political or corporate politics gets in your way, is the first thing to remember. The other one is, from an operational perspective, EA is there to guide and inform decisioning of how the organization actually runs operationally. So if enterprise architecture is to really serve an organization, it should at least have a seat with the COO, ExCo, or even COO, if possible. Ideally, and I'm really reaching for the stars now, EA should be strategic enough that it actually steers the organization at board level. I think having enterprise architecture at CIO, CTO, or even CEO level, COE level, puts too many escalations and layers above it and diminishes their strategic importance or influence.
Do you share?
Yeah, I totally agree. A few years ago, I was working at a bank as chief enterprise architect, and I was actually a member of the board. I was not on C-level, but I was taking a seat every week at the managing director board. and they were guiding the business, and it was a progressive bank. And I talked to the CEO directly and the COO directly. So they invited me. I was underneath the CIO, but they came across the CIO and just directly contacted me as the architect to help them to move the business forward. So I do agree with Greg that you should be on the highest level possible to help them to and it's also about digitalization, of course. If you are a progressive firm or company that wants to be a digital organization, then yes, as an enterprise architect, you should be on the top level. So I agree with Greg.
Yeah, we have some comments. Jens, Carl, Thibault says not all C-level resources agree to enterprise architects to be in the driver's seat together with them to develop business strategies, and still consider enterprise architects to be part of technical IT design reviews. What do you think?
I think it's a quite common thing. I mean, I also had, just what we were talking before, I kind of had the same maybe question, because I mean, in many of the roles I've been having, I don't sit below the CIO or the CEO directly. I usually sit in an office quite further down the organizational chain, which is more the question maybe, how do you then act when you don't have the seat at the board meeting, or you don't have the seat at the CEO? Because that's when that's where the challenge could be. How do you then get your voices heard throughout the organization? How do you actually, how do you raise the level? It's an interesting. That's a difficult topic, because I agree with Jens that at least where I've been, it hasn't been the priority. I mean, the way I've been successful, the times I've been successful at actually reaching up that way, is the tangible contribution, not necessarily the big architectural diagrams and thinking, but the tangible contributions to important projects, the driving of specific important projects, business projects, has been the way to get this agenda to the CEO level. At least for me, I mean, I think, I don't know if you agree, the rest of you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I do agree. The thing is that it's hard if you're not in the right position. So you need some kind of sponsor, of course. But how do you get to the sponsor? It's not only about getting a sponsor, but it's also about showing the sponsor the benefits that you get from using enterprise architecture for the business. So it should be about business outcome and business value. If you're also talking about IT, as I mentioned, the digital transformation is, of course, IT-driven, it's technology-driven, but you can create new business models from the technology-driven perspective. And it's about showing things, and it's hard work, it's hard labor. I know it for a fact as well. You have to go out and give presentations, go to the management, go to the board, show them where the industry is heading towards. And it's keeping up and doing it over and over and over again. And together with showing the benefits of using architecture within the project. So it's about the same time showing the delivery and change, and both showing the direction that industry is heading towards and how they can benefit from that by using enterprise architecture. It's not simple, not at all. So I agree with Rasmus. But it is something that you need to do. You need to go step out of the office, get out there. And it's hard labor, but I cannot be more honest than this. You have to go outside.
It's all about building relationships and demonstrating value. That's the
yes.
That's the main thing. Is you've got to, with our view of the enterprise as a whole, we can bring insights, especially as new business thinking emerges, and it's bringing that insight to the right level and building out a reputation based on those insights is the fundamental way of getting a seat at the right table, if that makes sense.
So it's relational, right? I mean, architecture sometimes in that regard is more relational, that it's because we're architects, we are automatically get the seat at the top table. But if we do manage to be like a valuable part of a relation upwards, then we might be lucky to get that influence, that seat at the top table.
Yeah, I also think that it's 80 or 90% even is communication and inspiring. And it's inspiring people on all levels in the organization and being their guide and aligning those people. It's something, communication and inspiration or inspiring people is the most important thing, I think.
I think you need to show value, but you need to communicate the value at different levels, no? Because not all is not so self-understand or not visible at all the organization. So value and communicate is value. Craig, do you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to agree with Marek and what you've just said now. It's how we create value and how we prove value is how we get things done. If we have C-level executives or people at the organization who believes that we are purely box tickers on a design review, they're going to focus that the workload onto us that's focused on technology and not necessarily strategic design or what the business needs. And if you're starting the question with the technology to use and you haven't found the problem to solve, you're starting with the wrong side of the equation. Architects have to be proactive. We have to collaborate. We have to prove our value, but we have to be strategic. We can't just be box tickers and IT people in the background. It's driving the wrong behavior.
Exactly.
But that's up to us to prove that.
Yeah. And it's the phrase enterprise that shows that we're not IT architects, right? It's about the enterprise. It's about the entire thing. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Adam in the audience added such comment: the organizational politics angle can often be overlooked from a transformation perspective. Always interested to hear views in the enterprise architecture role. In this has a referee, advisor, or participant. So you think this is the way to participate?
Well, I think that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go, Jordy. No, you go.
Yeah. Well.
Great.
Well, an organization is all about politics, right? So even if you maybe to start out with a simple example. If you have two applications to be in the IT side, and they do the same thing, and you want to harmonize your IT landscape, and one of the two should be out of there. And if you take a look objectively, then maybe application A should disappear, and application B should stay. But from politics, it can be the case that application B will be the application that should stay, because somebody in the business wanted to have this application. And it's all about trying to move and help people a bit. And it is politics, and politics means also about trying to let them say what you want them to say, of course, and help them guide and also show them what the actual advantages for the example that you want to have. And it's a bit incepting the mind. That's a huge thing about enterprise architecture. It's not just about diagramming and drawing. It is about communication, and it is about politics. But one of the major things that you need to be aware of is to be able to communicate on all levels in the organization and to get people on your side.
Yeah.
And I say probably as well to facilitate. Facilitation might not be where you actually come with all your architecture, but is where you can guide the rest of the business towards what you want them to think about. So if you want them to start a project, you maybe want to start thinking about the benefits and the vision, the goals before they start thinking about the solutions and technology. And if you guide them that way, you can not necessarily be the referee. Or the direct advisor, but you can participate in guiding them in the right direction. Right?
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you. I think the referee, but is the one that's the misnomer for me. If we're seen as referees, means we know the game plan, but we don't know, or we know the rules of engagement, but we don't know the game plan, which means we're just checking boxes between two parties. I think we have to be the advisor where possible, so we can strategically guide an organization to where it needs to go. And participation is where we collaborate with the rest of the organization to make sure we cover the resilience, right? Cover the security, on all the other aspects that we do. I think it's crucial. The referee part for me is a bit, it's a bit flaky. I think it's not necessarily our job to be referee by the strict definition of the term.
I agree with Greg, indeed.
Me too.
Yeah.
Everyone in our audience give a comment he's agreeing to. No? As a referee is indeed a proposition to be.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You want to guide, right? And not
Yeah.
yeah.
To guide a bit, it is possible. Yeah, in a very thought mode. Yeah. Let me make a last question. For me, it's very interesting, but I want to integrate the comment for Henrik van der Vat in our audience. Enterprise architects act as a tour guide of enterprise value, ensuring the value is identified or derived in all conversations. So he's seen enterprise architects as a tour guide, no?
Yeah.
For enterprise value, to create value, and ensuring the same value is an identifier or coming in.
I think Hendrik was trying to say that value is identified or derived in all conversations. In other words, make sure we add value wherever we go. With the tour guides to the enterprise value, the value we bring to an enterprise organization. Every conversation, collaboration we get engaged with, we should bring value in identifying and deriving what those outcomes should be.
Yeah,
That's
I agree.
my view on it.
And I also think that it's more and more about taking a look at the products and the service that you deliver to the customer. So it's about the value proposition that you have, and everything that you do should be connected to that value that you deliver to your customer or client, so to say. So everything that you will do in your change will lead up to that part of the thing, and that's the part where the EA always has to take it to consideration.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to add something, Rasmus?
No, I didn't have anything, not this time.
For me, it's interesting. I would like really to have the opportunity to make this last question is, most of consulting companies intend to enhance their service portfolio with a new business segment, which is the enterprise architecture. We see that McKinsey, Deloitte, PwC, and other ones. Do you think that it should make sense to outsource enterprise architecture? And in which cases? Which are the pros and the cons?
I think, if I can jump in there just off the cuff, I think there's pros and cons to both. I think the pro you have of keeping enterprise architecture internally is you maintain internal knowledge, and you have that you've grown over the many years. But like myself, I've moved to different organizations, and Jordy has as well. He mentioned he worked in different organizations. You grow a different kind of aspect, a different kind of understanding of what is possible. And I think consultants, if they're mature enough and have been through a lot of the changes, a lot of organizations, can also bring that diversity to the organization. So they can add value in that way. But it depends on the organizational structure, really, and how are you able to cope with outside influence.
I suppose you can say that you're right, Craig. I agree with you that the consultants, they tend to get a better picture of the general patterns of architecture. But the con would be that I think sometimes we need quite a deep understanding of the business that you're in.
Yes.
Which is difficult to maintain if you are a consultant that might even change your company once in a while. Change customers once in a while. So I think that will be the difficult part of it. I do agree though that perhaps the combination, because the aspects that you get from consultancy is much different than you get from a person who's been at the same company for a number of years.
I think I might. Sorry, Jordy.
Sorry. Yeah, so I do think I agree with both of you. I strongly believe in a hybrid situation. So you need some presence in the organization that is the knowledge of the actual organization itself, not just from the industry, but the organization itself. But it can be the case that I've been a consultant in many occasions, And I jump in and I have a lot of knowledge from different industries that I bring in, both in a vertical level from the industry, but also on the horizontal level, which was the possibility in each architectural layer. And that can help the internal enterprise architects even further again to be the strategic advisor, because you need a long-term strategic advisor or strategic enterprise architect within the company, of course. So I strongly believe in the combination of the both.
Yeah, I think you have to balance. You do need that deep organizational knowledge, I think, to be effective, but that also makes you somewhat blinkered as well. So I think an enterprise architecture team that mixes both experienced people who've grown up in the business as well as external consultants or external recruits who bring a different perspective is the ideal mix.
I think one more thing, it's probably not going to make many friends if there's any consultants out there. Jordy, apologies if you are. But I think you do need to have that mix so you don't have people in the organization who are not willing to stick around to deal with the consequences of their decisions.
Well, yeah. I don't mind. Well, as I did when I did consultancy, then I was never in there for 1 or 2 months. So the last job that I did was for 3 years, because then you get from cradle to grave the entire flow. Because if you're in there for just a few consultancy weeks or months, that will not do the trick, of course.
Yeah,
if you want to make a relevance, then you need to be on the longer term. You need to be in there. So I agree, Greg.
Totally agree.
Well, yeah, I'm with you, with all of you. I think that hybrid approach is always interesting because there are new inputs coming from outside, and sometimes a little bit fresh ideas and fresh air is make us grow. This is very, very important. But accountability at the end is on the company who needs to improve, have a continuous improvement over the years. We have a question from Sonny, or a comment. External engagement may get you away from political reference aspects, so give you commenting that there can be a support in some meetings, in some interactions to reduce politics. Rasmus, do you wanted to say?
No, there's noise in the background. Sorry. I'm home, so my family is making a bit of noise.
It's real life.
Yeah, exactly. It is real life. But though I agree though that the hybrid aspect is quite interesting. I do agree that you get quite a lot of good influence from people from outside that has different capabilities that you do yourself after being in the same place for a number of years. So yeah.
So thank you very much. Nelson Silverio gives a comment in the audience. The enterprise architecture should give his hands, one to business and another one to IT technology, to drive and reach the company goals. More like a magnet to approach valuable people from both sides.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that I tried to answer that question earlier about do you change the way you do his work as an enterprise architect. So when we digitalize more and more with the digital transformation and you get cloud ecosystems and technology drives the business and the business values and even the business models that you want to achieve, you need to be the go-to guy. So it is the position, as I see it, in the coming years if you do it right.
Yeah.
I strongly believe this.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We are 1 minute before leaving. We have just 1 minute. If you want to add something very, very valuable at the end, please go ahead. Craig, Rasmus, Marek.
I can say more to Jordy's here, being the go-to guy. I mean, being that part of the relationship with your business, your organization is very important. I think that gives the most value, that they actually trust you and they come to you for advice. When they do that, then you kind of know that you have the right thing going, because they won't try to avoid you. They think that you are valuable in your opinions with their problems. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's by adding value and maintaining respect.
Exactly.
So you have that.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, all the stuff we said, focus on that architecting for the agility, constantly demonstrate value. That's the key to a successful enterprise architecture function.
And with this word, value and respect, I am very, very happy to have had the possibility to moderate this session with you all and the audience. It was great. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
talk. It was
Thank
great.
Great questions,
Thank you.
everyone, as well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to the audience. Bye.
Bye.